Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 9th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'm joined by my co-host here on Tuesday morning, Mr. Cole Shelton. Cole, how's it going, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good, Cole. I'm good. We got a pretty solid card this weekend. Obviously, we had one this past Saturday. You were in the chat yesterday. A lot of people were yesterday. It was awesome. I love that. Marcel was here with us yesterday. I'm hoping he can drop by the chat today as well. And it was all in good fun, but we had a little bit of a discussion about the title shot at bantamweight yesterday. Most of the show is going to be about UFC 258 and breaking it down. But out of respect to Cole, and I respect you, Cole, because you've been here a long time. You've been over here over a year now. I want to give you a chance to rebut what Marcel was saying, just out of respect to you and to him. Basically, Marcel's argument is that TJ Dillashaw does not deserve a title shot. He has no business being in that conversation. And I agree with Marcel on that. I think Corey Sandhagen deserves it more. Cole was in the chat saying he thinks TJ is going to get it. He also, I believe, thinks TJ deserves it more. I would just like to hear Cole's thoughts on this. You got to give you some the floor here, Cole. So go ahead, man. The floor is yours.
So Dillashaw, fair to say, bigger name than Sandhagen. Like, no question. UFC's a business. Dillashaw does more money, does more pay-per-views. That's reason number one. Number two is he technically never lost the bantamweight title. Like, he did not lose it inside the cage. And the UFC likes Dillashaw. Like, he's headline pay-per-views. He's a guy that I think, like, he tried to go down to flyweight. Obviously didn't go his way. He got knocked out of flyweight, but I don't really think you can say, oh, he lost his last fight, because that was at 125 pounds. He had no business even being there. Mm-hmm. He's still one of the best bantamweight. Like, people consider him the best bantamweight of all time. Like, it's him, Cruz. Like, those are kind of the two everyone mentions. And if Aljamain beats Peter Yan, like, this is what I don't get. Marcel says he wants to see the rematch. The UFC doesn't book rematches really a year apart when someone lost in 88 seconds. Like, it was not a close fight. Aljamain just took him down and submitted him early. I think if Peter Yan wins, then maybe Sandhagen gets it because it's two strikers going at it. But if Sterling gets it, I can't see them doing the rematch, especially because I don't think Sterling Sandhagen, I don't really think the UFC is too high on Sterling. Like, they keep on trying to pass him over. And if Sterling wins, like a Sterling Sandhagen rematch for the belt, I don't really think is a big fight. I think the UFC would then do Dillashaw, or Sandhagen took no damage in that. If you really want to cement your case, I'm not even saying Dillashaw gets the next title shot, but Yan and Sterling are fighting in March. Why not have Sandhagen Dillashaw in April? Winners fight each other. Like, because I think if Sandhagen, especially if Aljo wins, a 2-2 fight winning streak beating Moraes and Edgar, okay, good wins. But if he goes out and beat Dillashaw, then people will really forget about that loss. And they'll be like, oh, this is a changed fighter. I still think a lot of people, including myself, are like, he lost in 88 seconds. Like, how much can he really improve in 2 fights?
No, I totally understand your point of view, Cole. It's fair. I mean, how often do we clamor for a guy who just lost last year to someone to get a title shot next year against the next guy, the same guy? So really, it depends on what happens in that fight, Cole. I mean, if Yan wins, it could easily be Sandhagen. But if Sterling wins, you're right. I mean, they might not do that rematch. I will say this, though. You know, to be fair to Sandhagen, he stayed busy since then. Like, he got back in the cage right away. He's fought twice since last June when he lost, Cole. So, you know, he's doing his best to get rid of that bad taste out of people's mouths. But there are the doubters like yourself, Cole, who still want to see him do a little bit more, which I can understand. So I like the guy. I think he deserves it, but we'll see what happens. I just want to let Cole get his thoughts because, you know, Marcel was going after him quite hard there yesterday. He's riding him hard, as we like to say. Okay, so we'll talk about some other like news and stuff after the breakdowns, but I want to get to this podcast because we have quite a few fights to discuss here today. So right now there are 13 fights at UFC 258. That's this Saturday at the Apex in Las Vegas. One fight, Andre Ewell and Chris Gutierrez, was announced yesterday. So we don't know the exact card placement, but Tapology just has it basically first. And also that fight's at 140 pounds, Cole. It's a catchweight fight. It's a short notice fight, which doesn't surprise either of us. I actually thought it'd probably be at 145. Like, if anything, 140 is you know, that's an extra 5 pounds these guys have to cut in short notice. So credit to them. Hopefully they make weight. I'm just setting it up, Cole. So just give me your overall thoughts on this card, especially as a pay-per-view. What do you think of it as a pay-per-view?
Yeah, I think it is missing a big fight in the co-main, but I do like the main card a lot. Like, I like Usman Burns, I like Barber Grasso, I think Heinisch Gastelum, Munhoz Rivera is really good fights. I know Marquez Patolo is not the biggest fight, but that's like a perfect fight to open up a main card. Or when I was talking to Marquez, he basically said, I want to either open up the main card or be the ESPN final fight to set up a pay-per-view, which is actually perfect placement for that card because someone's going to sleep in that fight. And to get fans excited for the rest of the card, I think that's a perfect one. Chip Miller, Bobby Green, like I think that's a really good fight. But then there's some other fights I'm like not too interested in, but we'll talk about. But I think like I don't really understand the Bilal Muhammad Diego Lima fight. Like that was a fight that Bilal lost his opponent. Diego stepped in on short notice. Then after Bilal got COVID, I thought he'd get someone ranked or someone higher up, and they still rebooked that fight. But it's an okay card. I still think it's missing that big fight, which you can't really blame the UFC because they lost Weidman Hall like 2 weeks notice. And how many big fights are going to step up on 2 weeks?
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think it's an okay card. It just needs a big co-main event, quite frankly. And I don't even know if Weidman Hall was that fight. I think that's a good fight. But anyways, I think it could have used like Yan and Sterling. But I think actually that was targeted for this card originally, and Yan had some visa issues. So that's what the UFC wanted to do. Okay, so let's start with the first fight, Cole, and we'll work our way up. Again, we don't know exact card placement on this fight, Ewell Gutierrez, but we'll start with it anyways. And right now the odds, I got to be honest, they surprised me a little bit. They opened with Gutierrez as the favorite. Right now he's minus 170, Ewell plus 145. What are your thoughts on this one, Cole? Because I know we talked a little yesterday. We kind of both thought Ewell would actually be the favorite here. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I was hoping Ewell was going to be fair because I actually like Chris Gutierrez in this fight. I don't, not too high on Andre Ewell. Like, I think he lost that Jonathan Martinez fight. Going to split with Jimmie Rivera. I don't think that was a split. I did think he won it. But the problem I have with Andre Ewell is he's kind of like a 1.5 round fighter. Like, why he always loses decisions or goes to split is because he always loses the third round and the second half of the second round, which makes the fight so close. Like, the first round, I fully expect him to beat Chris Gutierrez. I expect him to use that reach and just kind of pick Gutierrez apart. But once he gets starting to get tired, I just think Gutierrez is going to go to his wrestling. And that's why I loved Cody Stamen against Andre Ewell, was I just expect Stamen to just blast those takedowns. Andre Ewell just doesn't impress me enough with the takedown defense. And then when he gets down to the ground, like those is where he gets finished. Like Nathaniel Wood submitted him, Marlon Vera ground and pounded him out. And those are also third round stoppages once he gets tired, where I wouldn't be surprised if Gutierrez eventually in that third round does end up finishing him because he does have some ground skills, and the leg kicks I think are going to be a big part of this fight for Gutierrez. His leg kicks are obviously a big part of his game, but especially slowing down Andre Ewell because he's a movement guy. Like he likes using that footwork. If Gutierrez can attack that leg, it's going to slow Ewell down. It's going to make the takedowns easier. I'll pick Chris Gutierrez by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if he stops him in the third. Yeah,
this is a good fight. I like the matchup. Obviously, the short notice makes it really interesting. These guys are both the same range, I would say. Ewell, he does have a winning record. I think it's 4-3, but if you look close, man, it's kind of underwhelming. I mean, he's got 3 wins by split decision, Cole. Like, he could have easily lost those fights. I think the Barral fight should have been unanimous, but like the Jonathan Martinez fight, a lot of us thought he lost that fight. So this guy's got holes in his game. There's no doubt about it. The other thing that worries me is he just had COVID. A lot of guys that have had COVID have lost. So I'm a little bit worried about that, but there is one huge advantage he has in this fight, Cole. He has an 8-inch reach advantage. 8 inches. That's freaking huge. It's 75 to 67-inch reach. And in a fight that takes place mostly on the feet, if I had to guess, I think that reach will be huge. Gutierrez is definitely a good fighter. He's very capable. We've seen his low kicks, especially. They're nasty. He's got okay wrestling, too. He's a decent fighter, but I think Ewell's fought better competition overall, and I can't ignore that reach advantage. Like, that is huge. 8 inches. Are you kidding me? That's something that I'm considering. I mean, at plus 145, with that kind of reach advantage, that's a guy that I'm looking at for a play here. So I'm going to take a closer look at this fight at short notice. So, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this particular fight, but I like Ewell as the dog here, Cole. I think he can win decision. I think it's going to be a close fight, but the 8-inch reach advantage, man, I'll never bet against that, I don't think. All right, next up, we have Jillian Robertson against Miranda Maverick. I like this fight quite a bit, too. Right now, we have Maverick is a minus 140 favorite, Robertson plus 120. Close odds, Cole. Who's your pick?
Yeah, this is an interesting fight. I think right when it got announced, I was really on Miranda Maverick. I was looking a bit more. I see a path victory for Jillian Robertson, but I do have to stick with Miranda Maverick. Jillian Robertson, she's just too inconsistent for me. Like, she's someone that I think could easily be a top 10 women's flyweight, but then someone I think it may not even be in the UFC. I know that when I talked to her, she mentioned this is the last fight on her deal. If she loses this, like, would you be surprised if this someone in the UFC lets go? Like, she lost 2 of her. She'd be on a 2-fight losing streak. Like, she wouldn't be able to crack that top 15. I know she's still really young. She's only 25, which is really surprising given how long she's been in the UFC. But I just like Miranda Maverick a lot better striking wise, and I think Miranda Maverick's grappling can just negate Jillian Robertson, or she keeps standing. Like, I think if it goes down to the ground, I think Robertson probably is a better grappler, or maybe she might be able to submit Miranda Maverick. But Miranda Maverick has never been submitted before. Like, she has grapplers have been able to control her, but I think Maverick's takedown defense is good enough. We're on the feet. She's a much better striker. She'll just kind of pick apart Jillian Robertson. Like, we've seen Robertson struggle against strikers like Maycee Barber, where she knocked her out. Like, Talia Santos just kind of outstruck her and then led into the takedowns, which is much stronger than her. I'll pick Miranda Maverick here by decision, and I actually don't mind the odds. Like, I think Miranda Maverick could be a lot higher of a favorite.
Man, I gotta be honest, guys. I really like Maverick in this fight. This is a strong lean on my part here. Minus 140, I think there's significant value in her. I mean, I obviously could be wrong, but I like everything about her in this fight, man. I think this girl's a stud. I think she's a total badass. I think she's going to be making a run for that belt. I was super impressed by her debut against Liliana Jojua. She looked incredible in that fight. His striking was just pinpoint accurate. Beat that girl up so bad the doctor had to stop the fight, as we saw. She's actually won 6 straight fights, too. Miranda Maverick, some of her fights are missing if you look at certain records, but she has these like one-round fights in Invicta that aren't counted at some places if you look. So she's actually on a 6-fight win streak, hasn't lost in 2 years. And the girl she lost to, Deanna Bennett, she avenged that loss by stoppage. So, that fight against Pearl Gonzalez showed a lot too, in my opinion. She can go 15 hard minutes. The Jujua fight, man, the striking, and it was just brutal. You got to look at the fight from both sides of it, though. Jillian Robertson, there's no doubt about it. Her grappling it's phenomenal offensively. She can submit many fighters in this division, as we've seen many times. Having said that, Cole, I feel like she's someone that can break a little bit too, and we've seen that a few times. Maycee Barber fight, Maycee got on top of her and beat her up. Talia Santos just took away her will. She couldn't get the submission and broke. And I was really high on Santos in that fight. And Santos, I think, was the dog there too. So, at minus 140 odds, I like Maverick a lot here, guys. We'll see. I mean, it's definitely not like a gimme by any means. That's why the odds are close. Robertson gets it to the ground. She can get the submission. We've seen Maverick submitted before, but everything I've seen from Maverick, this girl to me could be a future champ. I'm telling you guys, like, there's a lot to like about her. She's a farm girl. She's doing her PhD now. She's like an overachiever, in my opinion, and I like that about her, man. So I'm going to go with Maverick Cole, and she'll probably be a play. I really do like her in this fight. Next up, we got – this one's interesting too, Cole. Give me your thoughts on this fight. Gabe Green against Phil Rowe at 170. And, again, close odds. And right now we have Gabe Green minus 135, Phil Rowe plus 115. Give me your thoughts on this one, Cole.
I like Philip Rowe here actually quite a bit. I know he hasn't fought in quite a while since he beat Leon Shabazian on the Contender Series, who I think is a bit overrated. The thing I don't like about Philip Rowe is look who he's fought before Leon Shabazian, who I think has an inflated record. Similar to what Philip Rowe is, he's fought 4-5, 1-2, 0-3, 0-1, 1-1, 0-1, 0-0, 1-0. Like, he hasn't fought anyone good. This is the first like real guy he's fought, but I'm still not too impressed with Gabe Green. I know we went to the decision against Danny Rodriguez on short notice. Rodriguez just kind of picked him apart. And then he has fought he also knocked out Leon Shabazian too, which is kind of interesting. That was Shabazian's other loss. So they have a common opponent. Before that, he's been knocked out in Bellator, Jalen Turner, and a guy named Randon Abafo on a California local scene. But the reason I like Philip Rowe is he's so much better than Gabe Green. Like, he has almost a 10-inch reach. I think it's 9.5 inches. I think that's going to come in a big factor. And I do think Philip Rowe will eventually be able to connect and either knock him out or maybe just a club it up where he drops him, then submits him. Philip Rowe does have a lot of submissions. I'm not too impressed with Gabe Green on the ground. I think Philip Rowe can eventually finish this fight like second, third round, but it is a close fight and the layoff does scare me. So I don't know if I'm going to bet Philip Rowe, but I do think he gets the job done. Yeah,
I just want to get these comments from the last fight. Sorry, guys, I missed them. Tyler says, Miranda Maverick's showing a lot of potential in the last few fights. I think she's going to win. Timothy Miller calling it now Maverick Sargent Robinson. That's kind of how I'm thinking it goes, man. Daniel Edwards, it's all about how Maverick's ground game holds up. And Tyler earlier said that it's an underwhelming card, which means it's going to be awesome. Of course, that always happens. Like last week, I thought it was going to be a really good card, and there was a lot of underwhelming fights. It is what it is. Okay, let's talk about this fight here. And, Cole, I pretty much agree with everything you said, actually. For me, the number one thing that stands out is the reach advantage. According to UFC stats, it's 7 inches, but I've watched Phil Rowe's fights on YouTube, and some of them listed his reach at 82 inches. So I don't know if it's 80 or 82, but regardless, he has a massive reach advantage. You guys know I love that, man. I always like a guy with that kind of reach. And he's also 5 inches taller. He's a big dude, Cole. He's just a big guy. The layoff is the number one concern for me. He hasn't fought in a year and a half. It's been a while. So that does worry me, obviously. How can it not? And Gabe Green, from what I've seen, he looks like very motivated, in shape. He did a few interviews with John Ko interviewed him, Cole, and a few other guys. So he looks like he's ready to go for this fight. And he did have one fight in the UFC, and he performed pretty well in a decision loss to Daniel Rodriguez. But I think it's because he performed decently in losses that he's the favorite here. Because I don't really see why he should be favored, Cole, because when you have those moments, I'm always going to pick the other guy. Gabe Green could win this fight. It's a light heavyweight fight, Cole. Like, we know – sorry, it's not a light heavyweight, excuse me. It's a welterweight fight. Anything can happen in this division. We've seen it time and time again, especially with guys like with this kind of power, and their chins aren't great. We've seen them both get finished. So it could go either way, but I think there's enough advantages with Rowe, with the reach advantage, with the height. I have to pick this guy, Cole. So I'll take Phil Rowe. I think he was plus 100 when I looked. What are the odds right now? Phil Rowe, plus 115 now, sorry. So it actually jumped overnight. I was looking at it last night, Cole, plus 100. I didn't mind it then. Plus 115. Definitely something to think about. Ty Warner, Phil Lowe's reach is insane, but he keeps his hands so low. His confidence great. He get caught so easily. I agree with that too. Dan Weber's Green makes it gritty, puts it on a row, close, not confident. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting fight. I like that reach advantage though. So he's definitely someone I'm looking at. It's just that he doesn't have a sample size in the UFC, Cole, and that always worries me. And he hasn't fought in 2 years. Again, that worries me. But that reach, Cole, how do you ignore that massive reach advantage? You can't. All right, next up, we got Ricky Simone against Brian Kelleher. This is actually a featherweight fight. And right now, Ricky Simone, minus 250, Kelleher plus 210. Cole, who'd you pick?
I like Ricky Simone here. It just has a big reach advantage. And the thing is, I think this is going to be very similar to the Cody Stamann fight, where Simone just kind of uses footwork, kind of picks apart Brian Kelleher, and then mixes in the wrestling, just kind of control the fight. I think the odds are a bit off. I think it's closer than the odds suggest. Like, I don't think Kelleher should be this big of an underdog, but the thing with Brian Kelleher is I think he's kind of that – I hate to say it, but I think he's kind of a one-round fighter. Like, you look at his wins, it's all coming with wrestlers making a mistake, keeping their head out, and he submits him or he knocks him out. Like, when it gets past that first round, like he lost to Cody Stamann, lost to Montel Jackson, lost to John Lineker. Like, his last fight he won outside the first round was Henan Barrow in 2018. So I do kind of worry about what this guy's cardio is like. Ricky Simone just fought too, but he didn't take much damage. But so I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, making this quick of a turnaround, especially going from fight out and now to Las Vegas, like all that travel, and then having to cut weight again. But I like Ricky Simone here. I know the Faber loss and Rob Font are still in the back of the mind of a lot of people. That I think if he were to fight Faber again, I'd pick Ricky Simone to win. I think it was just kind of he was over eager to fight him, got caught. Rob Font, not a bad loss at all. But I think Simone just mixes in the wrestling and striking and wins a decision. Yeah,
you got to go with Simone, I think, in this fight. There's a few advantages. I mean, the reach, too. He's got a longer reach, 3 inches. I think he is just a more well-rounded guy, a little bit more defensively responsible, a little bit, too. Like, the defense numbers show that, actually. But the number one thing, Cole, that stands out is obviously the takedowns. He's landing 7 takedowns per 50 minutes. So this guy's a takedown machine. We saw the last fight. He gets you to the ground. He can finish you. Kelleher has been finished before. Does he get finished in this fight? I don't know. It could go either way, I think. Cole, it could either be a decision or a finish. I do like Simone here, guys. But how many times have we seen guys in this minus 250 range, Cole, go in there and blow it this year? So many times. So, yeah, it seems like kind of an easy pick, I guess, for a lot of people. I'm not 100% confident in that. Again, I'm targeting more of the pick'em type of fights on this card, guys. This fight, minus 250, I don't know. I mean, I do like him to win, but Kelleher's, he's coming off a win. He's won 3 of his last 4 fights. Everyone's talking about Ode Osborne, how good he is, Cole. Kelleher beat him last year by finish. So this guy is good. He can be really good at times, but he's a little too inconsistent, and he's finished a little bit too much for me. So I'll take Simone, Cole, either decision or maybe a submission, but that's my lean. I don't know about the odds, man. All right, next up, we've got Polyana Viana against Mallory Martin. This is a close one too, guys. Mallory Martin, minus 155, Viana, plus 135. Who's your pick, Cole?
I have to go with Mallory Martin. I keep on fading Polyana Viana. I know her last fight I picked Emily Whitmire, but that was 2 girls I love to fade. Like, Polyana Viana got outstruck to Hannah Cyphers. I think Mallory Martin is a lot better striker than Hannah Cyphers. I think if you lose to Hannah Cyphers, I pretty much have to fade you, but I wouldn't be surprised if Viana gets down to the ground since Mallory Martin. We've seen Martin have problems on the ground, but I think she's good enough to keep it standing and probably win a decision. I can't see her finishing Polyana Viana. Her last fight, she did submit Hannah Cyphers. That was a rough first round. Like Hannah Cyphers rocked her, but I like how Martin bounced back from that because a lot of girls would have just kind of faltered there. But and then submitted to Verna Jandarova. I don't really think that's a bad loss. I think Jandarova's on the borderline top 15, where I don't think either of these girls are. Paulina Viana, it's basically she needs to get down to the ground and try to submit her. If it stays standing, Martin's going to pick her apart. And I think Martin's takedown defense is good enough to keep it standing. So I'll pick Martin by decision, but this is a fight I'm staying away from just because I don't have any confidence in either girl.
I don't know how you can have any confidence in Mallory Martin after that last fight, guys. Like, wow. She was getting lit up by Hannah Cyphers, Cole. She got dropped by Hannah Cyphers. Hannah Cyphers is, I think she's 1-5 in the UFC or something. Like, that was a terrible performance. She did win the fight. She came back and won. I like that. I mean, she's come from a great camp, great coaching, everything like that. She's seemed pretty tough in that fight, the fact that she came back. So she's mentally tough. But the fact she got dropped like that really freaks me out, man. I got to be honest. Viana is not a great fighter by any means. She doesn't have a good record in the UFC. But she is dangerous in the first round. So that is a worry here, Cole. I think she could win this fight in the first round. She actually has a knockout win over Amanda Ribas. I've seen that fight. She knocked her out cold in the first round to win the Jungle Fight Championship. Since she's come to the UFC, she's been a bust, I'd say. 2-3 record is not great, but the 2 wins were by first round stoppage. I thought about this fight a lot, honestly. There's reasons to like both girls in this fight. Viana has that 4-inch reach advantage. You guys know I love that. Ultimately, though, I do think that her takedown defense and lack of it, her takedown defense isn't great. If she gets taken down, I think Martin can either wrestle her or maybe get a submission. So that's what I'm going to pick. It is not a confident pick, though. I don't think you should play this fight. I could see this fight going either way. Let me get some comments here. Oh, sorry, guys. I missed the last one fight. Timothy says Simone should win easily. Yeah, he should win. But again, it sounds easy, right? But it's MMA. Anything can happen. Tyler Warner. I'm really high on Mallory Martin, especially if she can keep improving. I think she wins this one pretty easily if she can keep off her back. I think that Cyphers fight's an outlier. Could have been. I mean, it was Octagon shock, too, in that first round. But, again, she got dropped by Cyphers, man. That's scary. Daniel says Viana Martin stays on the feet. Viana does have a knockout win over Rivas, and Martin got dropped heavy, so be careful. Yep, I agree with that. Timothy's picking Martin, too. So we're going to pick Martin here, but I think we're a little bit hesitant. Cole, are you confident or not as confident?
No, there's no way I'm betting the fight. That is a pure just watch it. No, I don't even have confidence to bet an underdog in that fight.
I'm with you, man. Like I'm pretty much 100% with you. And again, I think Viana could win. I'll think about this one a little bit more, but the research I did, I think Martin probably uses grappling wins, but we'll see. Okay, next up, Diego Lima against Bilal Muhammad. This fight has been rebooked a few times, Cole. And right now we got Bilal. He's a big favorite, minus 345. Lima plus 285. You see a path to victory for the dog Lima here at all?
No, I don't really understand this fight. Diego Lima, he is on a winning streak, but look who he beat. Chad Lepre's knockout and then split over Court McGee and Luke Jumeau. I can't really put much confidence in beating Court McGee and Luke Jumeau by split. And I still have questions about Diego Lima's chin. That's the reason why he got let go from the UFC. He was getting knocked out everywhere. He got knocked out in Titan FC to Jason Jackson, went back on the Ultimate Fighter, then submitted against Jesse Taylor. I think when he gets these step up in competition, he loses. Bilal Muhammad is just a much better striker than Diego Lima. I fully expect him to just kind of pick apart Diego Lima for 3 rounds. I'm not too confident Muhammad gets a finish. He's not known for those finishes. You look at all his wins in the UFC are by stop or by decision. Then he has the 2 where he submitted Taki Shadow and ground pounded Augusto Montano. But other than that, it's all decision wins. Even on the regional scene, he's beating guys by decision. So I just think he's going to outstrike Diego Lima for 3 rounds and win a decision. Yeah,
this fight seems easy too. I'll say that. Lima has a lot of problems in this game. We've seen that. His chin is not great, although Muhammad is not a striker by any means. But Lima's been finished quite a few times in the UFC. Overall, in the UFC, he's 4-5, so it's a losing record. And the wins, quite frankly, have not been that impressive. The Jumeau fight was a terrible fight. The Leprice fight was a good win. That was a great win. That was in Toronto, Cole. You were at that card, I think, too. Knocked him out in the first round. So that was a big win. He was a big underdog there. But all those losses, man, and he's lost to guys just like this many times, like Jesse Taylor, guys that can wrestle you. And Muhammad's super tough, too. I think he's a better striker, too. Now, the thing is, Muhammad's actually got some disadvantage in this fight. He's shorter, 3 inches less in height and in reach. So that is a little bit scary because Lima does have that power. And, Muhammad, he's been KO'd before. So it could happen. But I think overall he's the much busier fighter. He is the better grappler, Cole. I think he's got the better cardio. I'd say he is the better chin too. He has most of the advantage in this fight. I just don't know if it's as much of a shoe-in as I originally thought, because when this fight was first announced a few months ago, I was like, man, this fight makes no sense. This is an easy walk in the park for Muhammad. But the more I looked into it, it's a little bit closer than it actually seems. I still have to go with Muhammad, though, Cole. I'll take him by decision. I think he wins by wrestling, but I don't know if I could bet him at minus 350, Cole. I don't think so, man. That's pretty high. You'd like it for a bet, Cole, or no?
It is a bit high. Like maybe it's just a parlay piece, like a 2-fight parlay, because I have confidence in that way. But I do think the odds are a bit too high, though. Yeah,
and if people do play parlays, I mean, the next guy, I think a lot of people would put in a parlay as well. Rodolfo Vieira takes on Anthony Hernandez here, Cole. Vieira is a big favorite in this fight, Cole. He is right now minus 400. Hernandez plus 325. I gotta be honest, I almost feel like it could be higher. I feel like he could be like minus 700, 800 in this fight, Cole. That's my thought. I think this guy's phenomenal. Give me your thoughts on this fight.
I think the odds are way too high. I think.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. I'm the opposite. Okay. Go ahead.
I think Rodolfo Vieira is a guy that's submission or bust. Like we saw in his last fight, he was getting picked apart on the feet to Safarov, who I don't think is very good at all. Like that fight, if Safarov could have survived that first round, that fight was getting stopped because of Vieira's eye. Like Anthony Hernandez, I think, has good takedown defense where if it stays standing, I think he's just going to pick apart Rodolfo Vieira. I will go Rodolfo Vieira. I think he can get down and submit him, but there's no way I'm betting this fight. Like, I think really a way to bet this fight is just the under 1.5, because I think if Hernandez wins, it's going to knock him out. If Vieira wins, I think it's going to be a submission. I don't really see this fight ending out of the getting out of the first round, but just the thing is, like, Anthony Hernandez, his last fight, he was a pick-em against Kevin Holland. Like, that's how much people think of Anthony Hernandez. Now he's a -4 or a massive underdog to Rodolfo Vieira. If Rodolfo Vieira and Kevin Holland fought, Holland would be the favorite. So I don't really see why the odds are this way. I think Vieira, he's obviously a good grappler, but I think there's ways to beat him where on the feet, I think he's going to get picked apart, but I don't think it's this fight that he loses. But I'll take a dog shot on him eventually because people just are so high on him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not as high on Hernandez as you are, Cole. I got to be honest. I haven't been too impressed with him in the UFC. To be fair to him, he lost to Holland, which, I mean, that's not a bad loss. But, he lost to Perez by stoppage. Perez is the guy he was begging the UFC to cut him like a few days ago. So that's not a good loss, to say the least. And he got stopped by submission in that fight. How can I ignore that? You can't. Vieira is one of the best submission guys in this division, Cole. Like, he is phenomenal on the ground. He's about as good as it gets on the ground. I'm with you, man. It does seem like he's one of those submission or bust guys, and I am curious to see if Hernandez could stop the takedowns and keep the fight standing, what Vieira's striking looks like. But I think he gets the takedown, man. And I know that Hernandez actually has strong takedown defense. 85% is very good. So I think he's got decent grappling in general. But Vieira he's just elite, Cole. Like, he's going to do everything it takes to get the fight to the ground. He will do everything he can to get this fight to the mat where he can sink in a choke, and that's how I think he finishes this fight. Either rear naked choke or arm triangle choke, which is how he seems to finish his fights, or maybe the anacondas like Perez caught him with. But I do like Vieira. Obviously, I'm not going on a limb there. He's minus 400. So, these are the type of fights I'm trying to stay away from, especially this year. There's been a lot of upsets so far. We've all seen that. Every week there's upsets now. Like crazy, and maybe this is not the smartest play, but I do think he wins. So I don't know. I'll be looking at Cole. What's inside the distance here? Oh wow, minus 240. It's brutal. There's no value in that at all, because it could go the distance possibly. Either way, I like Vieira. It's just the numbers high. Okay, next up we got where is this? Went too far ahead. Okay. Next up, we got a lightweight bout between Bobby Green and Jim Miller. This was added like 2 weeks ago. It's pretty recent. Right now, we got Bobby Green minus 260, Jim Miller plus 220. Cole, give me your pick.
Yeah, I think you could do speaking of parlays, I think a 2-fight parlay is just a Bobby Green, Bilal Muhammad. I like Bobby Green in this fight. I like Jim Miller a lot. Like, he's a really nice guy, but I think Jim Miller, this point of his career, is basically a first-round submission or he gasses out. And Bobby Green's someone that doesn't really get submitted. Like, I think his last submission loss, I think I was looking, was Joe Lazone, or Dan Lazone. It was a while ago. He hasn't been submitted in forever. Like, this guy is a decision king. I think a good way to look at this is just Bob Green by decision. Jim Miller he hasn't gotten finished lately. Like, obviously when he lost his past two have been Vince Michelle and Scott Holton by decision. and then look at his wins. It's just first round submissions. Like that's how this guy wins. His last 4 wins are all by submission in the first round. I think once that first round ends, I think Bobby Green is going to kind of control this fight, pick apart Jim Miller for the next 2 rounds. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 29-28 Bobby Green, just Jim Miller using the grappling, win the first round. I think Bobby Green's smart enough to know that Jim Miller is probably going to gas out, especially on short notice. And Bobby Green, I think, is just going to take over second, third round, just pick him apart and win a decision.
Yeah, again, these type of fights in this like minus 250, 260 range, these are the type of fights that keep losing this year. And there's been so many examples of that. It's unbelievable. And this fight was booked on really short notice. It's kind of a weird fight. And Bobby Green, I think, is the better MMA fighter overall because to me, like this, he's definitely got an advantage in the striking, especially in the pure boxing, like no doubt about it. And he's got decent wrestling, but man, like he has some bad performances at times, Cole. Like even the last fight against Moises, he was like minus 300 and he crapped the bed kind of in that fight. I know that the numbers kind of pointing should have won that fight, but it was a very competitive fight. It should have been less competitive based on the odds. Mm-hmm. So we've also seen him, be finished a few times. He drops his hands quite often, Cole. We saw that against Poirier. Jim Miller, when he fought Poirier, actually had tons of success in that fight with the low kicks. It would be interesting to see if Miller goes back to that calf kick in this fight. He's probably going to jump for a ghillie in the first round, Cole, if I had to guess. He'll try for it. But, Bobby Green's got a pretty good grappler. He has been finished. I think Tim Means submitted him like 10 years ago. So he's been stopped before. But overall, a good grappler. Overall, I think he probably sprawls and brawls his way to a win here. But, Cole, I'm not as confident as you in him. And Jim Miller's a guy. Cole, how many times has he won as an underdog? Like all the time. So many times. So yes, I will take Bobby Green by decision, guys. What's the prop on that? Actually, I don't see him finishing Jim Miller. Do you, Cole?
No.
Green by decision minus 120. That's not bad. That's not too bad because I don't think he finishes Jim Miller. If Jim wins, it's probably by guillotine in the first round. If I had to guess, guys. He hasn't won a decision in 5 years.
What's Jim Miller first round sub like?
Take a look at that. Let me answer some questions here. I'm going to get to you in a sec. You know who I'm talking about. Tim says it's going to be a dope fight. 2 aging fighters just came up an underdog win. Tyler says, I hate Bobby Green. Betting on Bobby Green, you never know what you're going to get. It's true. I love Bobby Green, though. We're actually like kind of like buddies. Oh. So what are you going to say, Cole?
I don't understand this at all. So Miller wins in round 1 is plus 875, but Miller first round submission is plus 675. So
different book or? Yeah,
because the one book that has round 1 doesn't have submission.
You could hedge if you're going to bet on Green. You could hedge with Miller by first round finish because I think that's the only way he'd win this fight.
875 though, that's not too bad. I thought it would.
It's not bad at all.
Miller wins his first. I don't think he gets Bobby Green out of there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
It's not bad at all. Let me take this comment. Daniel says, "Don't be surprised if Miller retires." No, I don't think so, bro. Cole talked to him. He wants to, dude. He fought at UFC 100. He fought at UFC 200. Now he talked to Cole, I think, and the other day, and he wants to fight at UFC 300.
So he said that's his retirement fight is UFC 300.
So he's still got it like 2 or 3 more years. And honestly, I don't think he's a guy they'd never cut. He's got they would give him like 5 losses in a row before they cut him, I think. By the way, I was looking at Hector Lombard's record yesterday when we were doing the show. He had 6 losses in a row before they cut him. Go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, Jim Miller is one of those guys, like he's passing Donald Cerrone for most UFC appearances. Like this guy is a future Hall of Famer. I forgot exactly what it is, but he passes, I think it's 5.5 hours or 6.5 hours of cage time. I think he needs 7 minutes in there. And it's either 5.5 or 6.5 hours he passes on. But
yeah. By the way, I just want to get sorry, Daniel. He said retired in the stool. My apologies, man.
I don't think he does.
I don't think has he ever quit in a fight? I don't think so.
Vince Pichel was beating him up pretty good, and he still went out there for this. And he was even saying to his corner, "I have no gas." And he was.
You know what though? It could be one of those fights where Bobby just lights him up with the boxing. I wouldn't be surprised. He just punches him repeatedly with the jab and busts his face up. It's possible. I don't see him quitting, but a doctor could stop the fight, as we saw last week with Justin James. Okay, this troll is here in the chat. His name is Babelfan. His name is Marcel. Says it's Jim Miller wins. He wants to see Miller Guida. And then he says, "Never mind. We already saw that. Good job, Marcel." Marcel says, "I'm still looking if I can spot a TJ Dillashaw poster on Cole's wall. It's not on his walls. It's actually on his ceiling above his bed." I'm just kidding, but you missed it, Marcel. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. Go back and watch it. You missed it.
I just checked. It's 8 minutes and 15 seconds for.
Go back to it, Marcel. I gave him the floor already. I wanted to give Cole that respect. Okay, Cole. Let's go to the main card here, man. We got 5 fights left, guys. Bear with us. Let's go through it. Now, this fight between Julian Marquez and Maycee Pitolo, it's going to be a good fight. I think there's a good chance it ends in a stoppage goal, but to me, like, this is not a main card fight. It's a good fight. It should be fun. I guess that's why it's opening the main card, but this is the kind of fight that is a prelim, and it just shows that this card was lacking that one extra fight to really push over the top. But either way, we got Julian Marquez against Pitolo, and right now Marquez is a pretty decent favorite, -165, +145 for Maycee. Give me your thoughts on this one, Cole.
I actually disagree that this is that perfect main card fight. You look at most main cards, you throw kind of one of these fights that's guaranteed a finish. I think this is this fight. I think Marquez knocks Pitolo out. Like, I know Marquez is coming off that long layoff where the split decision loss to Alessio Di Chirico. A lot of people thought he won that fight. With Maycee Pitolo, this is a guy I picked against, I think, in almost every single one of his UFC fights. Like, I'm not as high on him as a lot of people are. I think he's a very hittable guy, and I think he's a guy that can be finished. Like, you look at his record, most of his losses are by stoppage, whether it's submission or getting knocked out. Julian Marquez has a ton of power. This is a guy that knocked out Phil Hawes, and we obviously see how good Phil Hawes looks. He's the guy that submitted Darren Stewart, who kind of just went out there and blasted through Maycee Pitolo and submitted him. I wouldn't be surprised if Julian Marquez actually has a wrestling game plan for this fight, because I think on the feet, they're very similar. I wouldn't be surprised if Pitolo could put Marquez out. I think Marquez probably hits a lot harder than Pitolo, but I think ground game is where Marquez has a huge advantage. I haven't been impressed with Pitolo's ground game. I wouldn't be surprised if Marquez just shoots for a takedown and then submits him, but I think Marquez wants to just kind of get a big finish for the fans and just kind of remind everyone who he is. And I think he knocks out Maycee Pitolo here.
Tyler Warner, Coconut Bombs, one of the best nicknames in the sport. I agree with that. I like him, man. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like Pitolo. I actually thought I would pick him as a dog here, Cole, but man, like, he's just too defensively inept, man. And we saw that against Darren Stewart with that guillotine choke, which really surprised me. Because Marquez actually has some sneaky good submissions at times too. Like, he's the one, he choked out Stewart with, I think, the same choke, or the front choke, so very similar. The guy was impressive on Contender Series. He's got power. I like it. I mean, he's got a good personality, man. He does that podcast with Kendra Lust, and James is on that. I think he produces it for them. So, he's kind of a friend of our podcast in some ways too. But Cole, I got too many questions about the guy for a bet. There's no way I can touch him here because he hasn't fought in like 3 years, man. There's no way. Not 3 years, I shouldn't say. Almost 3 years. July 2018. Yeah, it's almost 3 years. That's a long layoff. And to be fair to him, he was supposed to fight last year, and someone pulled out of the fight. It was Safarov, who we were talking about in the chat earlier, actually. So that worries me, man. I really have no idea how a guy can look after 3 years. My guess is he might look even better than ever because he's getting great training in. And it's not like he's been inactive from the community, too. Like, he's been involved with the community. He's been doing other things. So, yeah, I expect him to win this fight. But I just think Pitolo is that kind of live dog. And, yes, he's looked pretty bad in the UFC, Cole. 1-3 record. It's not good. He's lost as a favorite a few times, too. But, he's got that nasty knockout power that can surprise you at times. And if Marquez shows any signs of ring rust in this fight, and he comes in and he starts off slow, Cole, I could see Pitolo going for that first-round finish. So my pick's going to be Marquez, guys. I also think the fight ends inside the distance. My bet for this fight, Cole, I actually like the prop on the fight not going the distance because I would rather have that than a side in this fight, guys. I think there's a chance Pitolo could get that finish as well. So my pick's going to be Marquez by stoppage, but because I think there's a chance Pitolo could get one as well, I would rather pay 5 cents more and get the finish prop than a side. That's just my thoughts on this fight. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was looking too. The under 2.5 is -130. Like, I don't mind that at all because I think this probably ends in the first or second round. Maybe I just pay the extra couple cents and get the doesn't end distance just.
Well, obviously the limit's gonna be lower on the prop, but many times I bet on a fight where I went under 2.5 goal and the finish happened in the last minute. So it's like whenever that happens, you're like, ugh. It's brutal. Okay. Tyler says Marquez guillotined Stewart. He did. He's good. Daniel says I expect Marquez to get dropped and come back. Okay, I'm going to get this comment. Battle fan, great. I watched it, guys. But Cole keeps saying I think the UFC time is fine. We don't need to spread the word for the UFC. I want just your opinion why TJ deserves it over Corey. Not what UFC wants. Think about it, Cole, because I want to get to the other fights quickly. You can think about it. Well, maybe your answer if you have time. Daniel says he likes over 1.5. That's interesting. I didn't even look at that. -165. That's interesting. I don't know, man, because I think there's a good chance, Cole, this ends early in the first round, I think. But it could go to the second, too. I don't even talk. I don't know, guys. In general, 1.5 is a scary prop to touch. But if in general, you probably want to go over to the under. All right, next up, Pedro Munhoz against Jimmie Rivera, Cole, in a bantamweight bout. This is a great fight as well. It's a rematch, actually. Rivera won a split decision like 5 years ago. Rivera minus 145, Munhoz plus 125. Who's your pick?
I like Jimmie Rivera in this fight. I think he's a lot better striker than what Pedro Munhoz is. It's a rematch fight, and Rivera did win that first one. With Pedro Munhoz, like, I still have, like, I don't know how good he is. Like, he's a guy that knocked out Cody Garbrandt, but I don't really know how good that win is because Cody Garbrandt gets knocked out pretty much everyone. He does have the win over Rob Font, which is obviously big, but when he gets those big step of competition, Assunção, Rivera, Dodson, Sterling, like, he's lost all of them, so I don't really know where he fits in this bantamweight. Same thing with Jimmie Rivera. This is a guy that entering that Moraes fight, if he won that fight, he was getting a title shot. He has one over Thomas Almeida, Uriah Faber. He has a split over Munhoz. He has the win over John Dodson. His last fight against Cody Stamen, I don't really put much to stock of that because they both took it on, like, I think it was like 9 days notice. They had to fly to Fight Island. Like, it wasn't much of a performance from either guy, but I like Rivera on the feet a lot better. I think this fight stays standing. I think he's a much better striker than Pedro Munhoz. And I think he just wins a decision, but this time a unanimous one.
I like this fight too. This was a fight I bet on last time. I had Jimmie Rivera the first time they fought. He edged it out. I thought it was going to be much like easier fight for him. You know, this is interesting because I would argue that Munhoz of the two fighters has improved more. I think he has shown a lot in his last couple of fights. I definitely thought he'd beat Frankie Edgar. You guys saw my tweet on the TV that night. I got a lot of hate for that, but I thought he won that fight for sure, Cole. I was surprised by that decision. The fight with Sterling was super competitive, but he lost that one clearly. But the Cody Garbrandt fight knocked him out, knocked out Caraway. I mean, this guy has been impressive. Like, even the Munhoz fight, go back to the John's fight, I should say, that was impressive too. Like, this guy is laying at a high rate. He's extremely active in his fights. He's far more active than Jimmie Rivera. Here's the problem, though. A lot of the strikes he's throwing are kicks from distance, and I think they score points because I understand that kicks do damage, and I get that kicks are a huge part of MMA. I'm not like Cecil Peoples and these other refs, but I think, or judges, I should say, I think, in that Frankie fight, it showed Frankie's punching him, he's kicking back, he's doing more damage, but Frankie was laying the punches. I think a lot of these judges, it's easier to see those punches coming. Of the two fighters in this fight, Jimmie Rivera is the better puncher, in my opinion. Long, straight, accurate punches. In fact, I think he dropped Peter Yan. He was out striking, and Peter Yan dropped him at the end of the round to win that fight. He was almost going to win that fight against Peter Yan, who was a champ. So Rivera's like just underneath that elite level because for whatever reason, just he kind of chokes in these big fights. But a guy like Munhoz, I think this is like one of those fights that he should win because I do think he is the better striker, and I think he'll play out like that Stamen fight where he just kind of lays back, lands some big punches here and there. And his takedown defense, by the way, is outstanding, 92%, one of the best in the sport. So, Cole, Rivera by decision, but it is a competitive fight, man. It's close, and I expect the judges to get involved, which always scares me, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, the judges are getting involved in this fight. It's probably going to be like a pretty high output bantamweight fight between two fast guys. How are the judges going to see that fight? So, as far as betting on Rivera, I don't know. I have to think about it a lot more. I see some advantages enough for a pick. But for a bet, I'm not sure about. But yes, I will pick Rivera by decision. Get these comments quickly. Oh, it's about you and Cole. Or you and Marcel. Cole's amazing, man. Love to discuss these things, passionate about, just like Adam Cole. That's why we love Marcel. He says he's relentless on him. Cole's just a drug test to prove he's on PEDs on the stream, though. Cole, go get your cup and take a piss test. We'll get the USADA tester to bust the podcast stream. Okay, we got 3 fights left, guys? All right, let's get through them. Kelvin Gastelum against Ian Heinisch, Cole. Kelvin Gastelum minus 230, Ian Heinisch plus 190. What are your thoughts on this fight, Cole?
I love how people keep betting Kelvin Gastelum because I keep betting against anyone that's the underdog against Kelvin Gastelum. I am not high on Kelvin Gastelum at all. I don't think he's a top guy at all. I picked him in all 3 of his last fights, and I won some good money because he's always the favorite. He was the favorite against Hermanson, a big favorite against Till, and then obviously Adesanya, he was a slight underdog. But I don't think he's that good. I think he's a welterweight. I don't know why he doesn't fight a welterweight. Like, he just doesn't care to cut weight. And his big wins at middleweight are what? Bisping, who 2 weeks before that win fought GSP and got dropped and submitted. And then Jacare Souza split decision where a lot of people thought Jacare won. And then Tim Kennedy, who he knocked out. And like, he doesn't have a big win really at middleweight. And Ian Heinisch, I know He
knocked out Vitor too, by the way.
Yeah, which was
he smoked weed.
What's his big win then? Vitor or Tim
Vitor.
Kennedy?
Yeah, he knocked out Tim Kennedy in Toronto. He beat the shit out of him. That was a crazy fight.
But
go ahead, Cole.
I like Ian Heinisch here. I just think he's a better wrestler. I think Gastelum's basically game plan is his whole game plan is just try to land that left hand and try to knock someone out. And Ian Heinisch has shown a very durable chin. Like, I know he lost Derek Brunson and the Omari Akhmedov, which does kind of put me off him a bit, but the thing with Heinisch is he switched camps, and we saw what happened when he switched camps. His first camp was that Mearshart one where he was the guy that everyone was so impressed that Hamzat knocked out Jared Mearshart in the first round. Like 2 months before that, Heinisch did the exact same thing. I think Heinisch just uses wrestling, uses striking, kind of just grinds out a decision. I was talking to him here. He says he can finish Gastelum. I'd be impressed if he finished Gastelum. Gastelum is very durable, but Gastelum's last fight just didn't look like he didn't want to be there. Like, I don't know what it was. Like I think Hermanson, I picked Hermanson, but that was a winnable fight for Kelvin Gastelum. I'm not high on Gastelum at all, so I think Ian Heinisch wins here, and I'll take the dog shot.
Yeah, I think this is a very competitive fight. Initially, like blindly, I thought Gastelum. Then I looked into it, man. I'm actually going to go with you, Cole. I'm going to go with Ian Heinisch too for the dog pick, guys. I like Ian Heinisch in this fight. I think this fight's a pick'em fight, guys. Honestly, plus 190. That's worth a bet for sure. Now, I think it'll probably be a half play, Cole, for me, just because Heinisch is a little bit inconsistent. But Cole, are you kidding me? At plus 190? Like, why is Gastelum that big of a favorite, guys? He's on a 3-fight losing skid. He hasn't been impressive in a long time, coming off a really quick loss to Jack Hermanson. He didn't do much in the fight with Till. Listen, he looked great against Adesanya. He almost, I wouldn't say he almost won the fight, but he was competitive. At the same time, though, that he got knocked down 4 times. He took a beating in that fight. He hasn't been the same since then, Cole. How many times have we seen that throughout the years? There is no bigger fan of Kelvin Gastelum than me. I was the first guy on him. He fought Uriah Hall. Everyone liked Hall in that fight. I was the one saying, bet on Gastelum. He's like plus 350. I loved him in that fight, and I've always liked him. And he's lost a few fights he should have won along the way, and vice versa, but I've always liked him. I just think this is a good spot to take a dog, Ian Heinisch. Ian Heinisch is a well-rounded, solid fighter, good cardio, good chin, Cole, decent wrestling as well. And we saw in the fight with Gerald Mearshart knockout power. Dude, after Khamzat knocked out Mearshart, everyone's like, this guy's the next champion. No one said that about Heinisch. Yeah. Well, I almost feel like that knockout was so forgotten about. He looked outstanding in that fight. Go ahead.
And before that, Heinisch knocked out Mearshart, no one finished Gerald Mearshart. Like, Mearshart was a guy that when he lost, he went to the distance. And then everyone was so impressed. Hamzat, like, oh, no one finishes Gerald Mearshart. Look what Hamzat did. Heinisch did the same thing in like 20 more seconds 2 months earlier.
Yeah, again, and he's a natural middleweight. Kelvin Gastelum's a chubby middleweight, basically. He could make welterweight if he really, really put his mind to it. But he's got some vices, man. And you can't fault the guy for having some vices, which we know about. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of life. But I do think that, the proof's in the pudding with this guy, Cole. He's not the same fighter he once was. He hasn't looked that good. I could be completely wrong. He could look amazing in this fight. He is younger in this fight, by the way, than Heinisch. So, he's still the younger guy. But, Cole, I have been pretty impressed with Ian lately. And even the fights he lost were very competitive fights. Mm-hmm. So, plus 190, I will take a shot on that. Not a full play, but a half play. Battle fan, I hate to cut you to you, Adam. I picked Gastelum as well. I'm tough fan. I'm glad to hear that, man. He looks so good in that show. He's finishing everyone on the ground. Daniel Edwards says Heinisch has the edge on volume. I like that too. Go ahead, Cole.
One quick thing. Would you be surprised Gastelum was this? He's one of those 60 guys let go. He's probably been paid quite a bit of money too.
Yeah, and you know what? Another guy is, as much as I hate to say it, I think Overeem, Cole, he makes like what, 400,000 or 500,000. Yeah. Same with Arlovsky makes a couple $100,000. Those are guys that they lose one fight could get cut. So yeah, Tyler says he completely agrees with both of us. He's very low on Gastelum. I think he's overrated. That's why why is he ranked in the top 10? I think he's based on the win over Bisping, who was the champ at the time, or before that was the champ. Obviously, GSP beat him, and then the Jacare fight was the top 10 win at the time, but it was a close fight. Although I did like Gastelum in that fight. So it's all matchup dependent, guys. In this matchup, I like Ian Heinisch for a small bet at plus 190. There's value on him. Cole, we got 10 minutes. We got to hurry through these next two. Maycee Barber against Alexa Grasso in the women's flyweight division. And right now we have Grasso minus 140, Barber plus 120. You see some value in the dog, or you like the favorite?
I just don't understand this matchup. I think Maycee Barber and Alexa Grasso are two of the more promising prospects at women's flyweight, which desperately needs new talent. Like Shevchenko is just running through that top of the division. And the thing with Shevchenko is she wants to be so active that they need new contenders. And I don't really understand why they're putting these two against each other, because these two could easily string together 2-3 wins. They're fighting for the title, and that's two new contenders for Shevchenko. But I like Maycee Barber here. I don't know why she's the underdog. I think people are put off by that last fight, but she tore her ACL. I was actually more impressed than a lot of people in that last fight, just because she tore her ACL and didn't get finished. A lot of people, like, she thought she couldn't even move. Like, she was falling down when she tried to walk. And I think Maycee Barber's game plan kind of switched to this fight, and I think she's just going to be a wrestling heavy game plan. Like, you look at Alexa Grasso, how she loses is to grapplers. She doesn't have very good takedown defense. When she gets down on the ground, she doesn't really know what to do. I think Barber's a lot better wrestler than what Grasso is. I think Grasso's the better striker. If Barber tries to strike with Alexa Grasso, she's probably going to lose a decision. But I think she's smart enough to wrestle, and I wouldn't even be surprised if she finishes Alexa Grasso like a ground pound TKO or submission. But I don't think you have to go prop hunting on that just with Barber being the underdog. But I like Maycee Barber in this fight.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you on this one too, Cole. And it's funny. Me and Cole, we don't give our picks to each other before we do the show. We just wanted to go in blindly. But Cole had mentioned he had picked a few dogs, and I said I picked a couple as well. And it looks like, Cole, we're gonna have the same dogs on this card, which is crazy to think about, because all these fights we have the exact same 3 dogs that we're picking here. And this is another dog I'm going to pick too, Maycee Barber. I think this is a close fight. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Grasso could win. There's a reason why it's a pick 'em fight, basically. But Barber at plus money, Cole, she was minus 1,000 her last fight. She lost. She got destroyed. Then she goes and she's an underdog now. I think people are writing her off a little bit too soon, Cole. I think we see this more in women's MMA too. I think fans or bettors are a little bit more critical of a loss. Like, they just dump on these girls. Like Maria Agapova, she'll probably be an underdog in her next fight too. Watch, because people think she sucks now. So I'm not convinced Barber is this horrible fighter after losing to Roxy. Listen, that loss surprised me as much as everyone, but she did get injured in that fight. And, that was a good lesson learned, if anything. Like, she went in there against a 40-fight veteran, Cole, with like 7 or 8 fights, and she got dominated. And, if you had bet minus 1,000 on her, which was a terrible bet, any way you look at it, you lost your money, you're probably pissed at her, but she's a young fighter, Cole. She's 22 years old. On the other side of the coin, Grasso has been, really inconsistent in UFC 4 and 3. Not great. She did look good against Kim, though, at her flyweight debut. So that's interesting. I mean, maybe this is her weight class. Maybe flyweight is her weight class. But I can't ignore the fight with Esparza. She got taken down 6 times in that fight, Cole, and lost the decision. I think there's a very good chance Barber would use the same kind of game plan here. So my pick's going to be Barber, and she's definitely someone I'm looking at as a play too at plus money. So I'll take a look at Barber. I'd like to see how she looks in the weigh-ins and stuff as well. But everything I've heard, she's going to perform well in this fight, Cole. She's super confident in her skills, and we'll see what happens. I just honestly haven't been too impressed with Grasso. I think, she hasn't really performed to the abilities. But at 125, it could be different. Go ahead, Cole. Go ahead.
With Barber, when I talked to her too, because I was asking her about, like, is the game plan to wrestle? She didn't even really answer, but she just kind of had like a little laugh and a smile. So I wouldn't be surprised if the first thing she does is shoot, like, literally like 10 seconds in. Yeah.
And then Tim says Grasso's got this. Who's Barber fought that was good as Esparza? No one really.
But I don't think it really matters who she fought if you're losing them. If she's winning those fights, it's impressive. But I think Barber would have lost to Esparza too. So I don't really.
No, to be fair, I think that Grasso no doubt has had the better competition, fought the better competition. But I just think Barber's, quite frankly, the better MMA fighter. We'll see.
Finishing Jillian Robertson in the first round is very impressive. Yes. No one finishes Jillian Robertson.
Okay, we got a few minutes left, guys. We're going to go through the main event, but I do want to get these comments really quick. Tyler says the PO bet minus 1,000 plays UFC are people who you don't listen to their picks on anything. Anything can happen in the cage. Dude, this is why I'm sticking to pick 'em type fights, man. Battle fans, the weirdest thing when you see people get upset about fighters because they mess with their parlays. I mean, you gambling, 100%. Only one that blames you. Dude, especially when I used to be like a serious gambler, like, I never blamed the fighter, Cole. It was always myself. I'd beat myself up. I'd go back and wonder what mistake I made in my research that led to that wrong decision. I would never blame the fighter. I blame the judges, though. I'll tell you that right now. The judges, that's someone that bettors are always going to blame for the rest of the time. All right, Cole, we got a few minutes here. Give me your pick in the main event between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. Usman minus 280, Gilbert Burns plus 240. Go ahead, Cole.
Just really quickly, I like Kamaru Usman by decision here. I think Gilbert Burns, I think, probably hits harder than Kamaru Usman, but I think Usman's better striker, like more technical, better volume, better cardio. And I don't think this fight really even goes to the ground. I think Usman's smart enough where he probably knows Gilbert Burns probably has what it takes to submit him, and his wrestling background will be able to just stuff the takedowns, keep it standing. And I think Usman is going to be a lot stronger, where I wouldn't be surprised it's going to be similar to that Masvidal fight where Usman just kind of holds him up against the cage, clinches, uses those patented foot stomps, and just kind of grinds out a decision. Like, I think Burns' best path is probably just to get a one punch, try to knock him out, or if it hits the ground, to submit him. But other than that, I like Usman everywhere. I think he's a better striker. I think he's more technical, more volume, better cardio. I think he just outpaces Gilbert Burns for a decision.
Yeah. I got to be honest, my initial thoughts looking at this line was it's kind of high, and I still think it's a little bit high. I got to be honest, Cole, but, I thought Burns was more of a live dog until I really looked at it. And then I looked into this fight, and it's like the more you look into Usman, it's like the more impressed you become with this guy. Like, I got to be honest with you guys, I have not had a great read on him lately. I thought Colby was going to beat him, and that fight was close, but he obviously knocked him out late. And I thought Masvidal had actually a chance in that fight. But I did pick him against Woodley, so I do believe in his skills, and I know how good of a wrestler he is, and I know how good a striker he's turned into. I like him in this fight. I think there's a lot of advantages here. Number one, Cole, 5-inch reach advantage. I love that. You guys know I love the reach. 5 inches is great. 2 inches of height. He is the natural welterweight. Burns used to fight at lightweight. He's looked great at welterweight. But overall, Usman is proving himself obviously way more at 170. 12-0 in the division. You can't bet against him anymore. Don't do that. It's like betting against GSP. It's not a good play. It's just not. It's not a winning play long term. When these guys like GSP, Habib, these guys are winning fighters. They just rarely lose. I know it's matchup dependent, but there's not much to like about Burns in this fight. Like, Usman beats him everywhere, Cole. Every number you look at, the takedowns, the striking, the reach, the height, everything, he beats him in every category. Now, Burns obviously has looked incredible lately at 170, and maybe he really is this incredible welterweight, and he goes in there and KOs Usman in the first round. I think that's the way he'd have to win, Cole. I think he'd have to knock him out in the first round, because over 5 rounds, I don't really see him being able to win this fight by decision, because I think Usman's proven he has that cardio, Cole, that goes 5 strong, and he can wrestle the whole time. Like, he can push you against the fence if he can't get the takedown and just beat you that way too, like he did in Masvidal. So, yes, I'm going to go with Usman here. I do think the odds are a little bit high, though, I will say. I cap him more about like minus 200-ish, but I can't say there's not enough, edges to him that you have to pick him here. At the same time, Cole, if someone wanted to put a small bet at Burns at plus 240, if they really believed in him, Cole, I wouldn't hate that bet. You know what I mean? But me personally, I think I'm just going to watch this fight, guys. I will say, though, I think it goes to the full distance, Cole. I don't see a finish. I think it goes to the distance.
I think it's a fight, too. You can just bet the overs if you really
You could. I think that's something to look at. There's a few overs to look at. Just going to get these comments quick. We got 2 minutes left. Tyler says when he loses, it's his fault. Dude, exactly. You got it, Kyler. Timothy, do you think Burns completely counters Usman-style fighting? I feel like Burns does what Usman does, but better. The Woodley fight was telling. He is phenomenal, but I just think
Usman did the same thing to Woodley what Burns did.
Yeah, I think exactly. And I think Usman can just, if he can't get takedowns, Cole, he can push him against the cage and just do that, like grind him there like he did to Masvidal. Tyler says Woodley hasn't won to be the cage in 3 years. If anything, I think that Woodley fight is overrated Burns. I had Burns as like, I think he was plus like 180 maybe. I loved him in that fight, Cole, but I think this is a different matchup, and his best bet's a surprise punch or submission attempt. That's the other thing. Obviously, being on top of the submissions at all would be stupid not to. If the fight goes to the ground, which I think it does, of course he has a chance to submit Usman. Usman has been tapped out once. I just don't see it happening. Anyways, that's it for today's show, guys. We got like a minute left, so we're just going to plug our stuff. I'll be back on Thursday at 10 a.m. I'll try getting Marcel. I know you guys love him, so I'll try getting him on the show. Cole, you killed it, man. Appreciate you coming on as always. It's crazy we had the same 3 dogs. I can't believe that. We'll see what happens. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing. Probably not too great. I'm just kidding. Cole, please plug your stuff, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, Twitter, @Akilshell91. My show is live this week, which is a lot of people. Maycee, Barber, Ian Heinisch, Jim Miller, Julian Marquez, Jillian Robertson, Anthony Hernandez. Stories with all them. And then fighter picks for the main event.
Yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter @MAdamMartin. Podcasts, MMAOddsbreaker.com. It's on our YouTube channel, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, a lot of places. Hopefully you guys can subscribe, share, listen, tell your friends about it. I hope you guys are, especially some of the newer listeners, we love having you guys. We had Timothy Miller here. And Babel fans says they're about to break news on Bellator on the MMA DNA Twitter, so follow those guys. Tyler, great show. Thanks, man. come back on Thursday at 10 a.m. I'll get you come on, Marcel. You can talk about Bellator's news. I have heard they're going to announce some fights today, as you did, Cole, as well. Anthony, a friend of mine who's also Anthony Johnson's, he's part of his management team. He confirmed they're going to announce his fight today. So, and Yoel Romero too, Cole. So hopefully there's a tournament or something. All right, guys, be back Thursday, 10 a.m. Bye.